Joyce and Anthony lived in a quiet suburb in a beautiful 2-story house. It was the kind of home many dreamed of, with a lush garden in the front yard, large windows that let in sunlight, and a spacious backyard where their children, Jaden, 5, Mia, 3, and little Noah, just 1, could run and play. The house was Anthony's pride. He bought it before marrying Joyce, and it symbolized the life he had worked hard to build. Anthony was a successful man, respected in his field and admired by many. He loved his family deeply and worked hard to provide them with a comfortable life. After they married, he asked Joyce to stay home to raise their young children and manage their home, believing his income would be enough. Joyce agreed, wanting to give her children the best start in life. She knew the early years were crucial and wanted to be there for every moment. Joyce embraced her role as a stay-at-home mom with joy and dedication. She made sure their home was warm and welcoming, filled with love and laughter. She prepared meals, kept the house clean, and attended to her family's needs. Her days were full, but she was happy taking care of the people she loved most. Joyce was also involved in her children's lives outside the home. They attended a prestigious private school that offered them the best education. Joyce volunteered at the school, helping with events and organizing donations for those in need. She was known as a dedicated parent, always willing to support the school and its community. Her efforts were appreciated, and she felt a strong sense of purpose in helping others. In addition to her work at the school, Joyce was a valued member of a local women's club. The club consisted of women passionate about giving back. Together they organized charity events, raised money for underprivileged children, and provided support to those in need. Joyce loved being part of this group. The women were like sisters to her, united by a common goal: to make a difference in the lives of others. Life in the suburb was idyllic. Joyce and Anthony were deeply in love. Their children were thriving, and they had everything they needed to be happy. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Anthony's hand brushed against Joyce's. "I'm so lucky to have you," he said softly, his eyes filled with love. Joyce smiled, leaning into his embrace. "We're lucky to have each other," she replied. "You've given us such a wonderful life, Anthony." But life can be unpredictable, and their perfect world was about to be shattered. It started with small things. Anthony, who had always been strong and healthy, began to feel unwell. At first, it was just minor issues: fatigue, a persistent cough, some weight loss. Joyce noticed the changes and grew concerned, but Anthony reassured her that it was just stress from work. "Maybe you should see a doctor," Joyce suggested, worry etching her features. "Just to be safe." Anthony waved her off with a smile. "I'll be fine. Don't worry." But as the weeks passed, his condition worsened. Joyce couldn't ignore the signs any longer. One night, she found him sitting in the kitchen, his head in his hands. "Anthony," she whispered, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. He looked up, his eyes tired and filled with pain. "I'm scared, Joyce," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what's happening to me." Joyce's heart clenched. "We're going to get through this," she said firmly, taking his hand. "We'll go to the doctor tomorrow, okay? We'll find out what's wrong." They went to the best specialists, hoping for good news, but what they received was devastating. The diagnosis was serious. Anthony had an aggressive illness that was difficult to treat. The doctors laid out the options, but the prognosis was grim. Joyce felt as if the ground had been pulled out from under her. This can't be happening, she thought, gripping Anthony's hand tightly as they sat in the doctor's office. Anthony turned to her, his face pale but determined. "We're going to fight this," he said, his voice filled with resolve. "I'm not giving up, and I don't want you to either." Joyce nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "We'll do whatever it takes," she promised. Determined to fight, Joyce focused all her energy on caring for Anthony. She researched treatments, sought second opinions, and did everything to make him comfortable. She was by his side day and night, managing his medications, cooking special meals, and taking care of every detail so he could focus on getting better. But despite her efforts, Anthony's condition continued to deteriorate. The man who had once been full of life was slipping away, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. One evening, as they sat together in the dim light of their living room, Anthony's voice broke the silence. "Joyce," he whispered, his hand trembling as he reached for hers. "Promise me something." She looked into his tired eyes, her heart aching. "Anything, Anthony." "When I'm gone," he said, his voice strained, "take care of our babies. Make sure they have everything they need, and that they remember me." Tears filled Joyce's eyes, but she nodded, her voice steady. "I promise, Anthony. I'll take care of them. They'll know how much you loved them." Anthony smiled faintly, his grip on her hand loosening. "I know you will. You're strong, Joyce. You've always been stronger than you think." That night was the last time Anthony spoke to her. He passed away quietly in his sleep, and with him went the life they had built together. Joyce was devastated, her heart shattered into pieces, but she knew she had to stay strong for her children. They needed her now more than ever. The funeral was somber, filled with mourners who came to pay their respects. Joyce wanted to speak, to share her love for Anthony and their memories, but his family, who had always been distant, wouldn't allow it. They were powerful and wealthy, controlling the funeral arrangements. They blamed Joyce for Anthony's death, saying she hadn't done enough to save him. Their words cut deep, adding to her unbearable pain. After the service, as the last of the mourners left the cemetery, Anthony's sister Clara approached Joyce. Clara was a tall woman with a sharp gaze, and her expression was cold as she looked down at Joyce. "Joyce," Clara began, her voice low but filled with contempt, "I'm going to be blunt with you. You won't be inheriting anything from Anthony's estate." Joyce's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, Clara?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Anthony and I built a life together. We have children." Clara cut her off, her tone icy. "That life was built on my brother's hard work. The house, the assets, everything, it was all his. And it's all in his name. You have no claim to it." Joyce's mind raced. She had trusted Anthony, never thinking she would need to protect herself legally. "But he was my husband," Joyce protested. "We were a family. What about the children? They need a home, a stable life." Clara's lips curled into a sneer. "The children will get what's theirs when they turn 18. But until then, you're on your own. You should have thought about that before you let him die." The words were like a slap in the face. Joyce's legs felt weak, and she clutched the side of a nearby tombstone to steady herself. "How can you be so cruel?" she whispered, tears filling her eyes. Clara leaned in closer, her voice venomous. "Cruel? You think this is cruel? You have no idea what's coming, Joyce. My family has the resources to make sure you walk away with nothing. You were never good enough for Anthony, and now you're going to pay the price." Joyce was speechless, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew Clara was powerful and that fighting her would be nearly impossible. But the thought of losing everything, her home, her children's security, was unbearable. Clara turned to leave, pausing to deliver one final blow. "You should start packing, Joyce. The house will be taken back soon. Find somewhere else to live. This life is over for you." As Clara walked away, Joyce felt the full weight of her words. She had trusted in the strength of her marriage, never imagining that Anthony's death would leave her so vulnerable. But now, standing alone in the cemetery, she realized she was truly on her own. Anthony had not set up a will, believing his life would not end so soon. But he had taken out a life insurance policy shortly after their first child was born, naming Joyce as the beneficiary. This policy was their only hope amidst the chaos that followed. Yet even this potential lifeline became a source of struggle. The life insurance payout was tied up in legal disputes, thanks to Clara and Anthony's family making it difficult for Joyce to access it. The battle to claim the insurance funds was relentless, filled with legal hurdles and manipulative tactics. Joyce fought to claim what was rightfully hers. The struggle left her exhausted and frustrated as she lived in her mother's small town, far from her previous life. During this time, Joyce faced numerous challenges. She had to uproot her children from their prestigious private school and enroll them in a small town school. They struggled to adjust to their new environment, missing their old friends and familiar routines. Joyce also had to stop volunteering at the school and withdraw from the women's club. The other women began to distance themselves from her, unable to understand her struggles or her inability to donate as she once had. Despite the overwhelming obstacles, Joyce never gave up. She worked tirelessly at various jobs to provide for her children. Cleaning houses, working at the local grocery store, and taking any opportunity that came her way, Joyce poured every ounce of her strength into supporting her family. Each night she cried herself to sleep, the weight of her responsibilities almost too much to bear. Finally, after 3 grueling years, Joyce received the life insurance payout. The money was a bittersweet victory. She would have given anything to have Anthony back instead of the funds. However, it was his final gift to ensure she and the children would be taken care of. With the insurance money, Joyce bought a modest house, a place to call their own and start anew. It wasn't as grand as their previous home, but it was a fresh beginning. Joyce also enrolled her children in a better school, providing them with opportunities for a brighter future. They slowly adapted to their new lives, making new friends and finding happiness in their new home. Despite everything, Joyce felt proud of her children's resilience and her own ability to persevere through the hardest times. As she stood in the doorway of their new home one evening, watching her children play in the backyard, Joyce smiled to herself. Life had thrown her countless challenges, but she had faced them all with strength and determination. She missed Anthony every day, but she knew he would be proud of the life she had built for their children. "Thank you, Anthony," she whispered into the evening breeze, for everything. I'll keep fighting for our family, always." And with that, Joyce knew that no matter what life threw at her, she would be ready. She had faced her darkest days and come out stronger, driven by her love for her children and the promise she had made to Anthony. This was her new beginning, a future built on resilience, hope, and unwavering love. Thank you for watching. God bless you.